Kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition, a best of 2024. Today we're looking at August. August was an interesting month because August for the show was the month I got COVID and we disappeared for a week. I think Chewie happened to be in Wellington at the same time. And that was actually the catalyst. I can remember we did an episode where we had a full conversation with you guys about the new direction of BHN, not necessarily content-wise or style-wise, but we realised when me and Chewie were unavailable, someone else needs to be. So this was the month in 2024 that we decided we would expand. And from that, we got Emily and Magenta on board, and now we're 5 nights a week. So August was quite a big month for the radio show, the podcast in general, for Big Hearing News in general, because we turned slightly and added people, and now we are who we are. Hey, tonight on the show, we're going to speak, well, we did speak in August of last year to the principal from the far north. I think he's the head of the Primary School Principals Federation or something from Northland. His name is Pat Newman. He's very, very angry at the quote-unquote wanker, his words, not mine, that Christopher Luxon is for messing up the teaching sector. Also, Nicole McKee was on Q&A and wanted the Police Association comments removed from public record. And she goes and has a chat with Jack Tame about what's actually wrong with the gun registry, even though police want it, the Police Association wants it, the public want it. Seems that maybe the gun lobbies don't. We'll have a chat. Well, we won't have a chat, but we'll watch a chat with Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, who was talking about benefit sanctions, which will lead to more children going into poverty. And also we've got a clip from the working group where Matthew Hooton eviscerates Damien Grant with a simple, logical point on grouping people. Interesting. Hope you're well. Hope you're safe. Looking forward to seeing you again. We'll be back live, me and Chewie, on the 20th. Emily and Magenta will be back live next Monday, I think, if I've got my numbers right, the 13th of January, for a live series of shows from there. And of course, I come back for a week and then I go off and get married, and I'll see you at Waitangi if you're going to be at Waitangi. Let's start with, let's do Pat Newman. Pat Newman's angry at that wanker, his word, Christopher Luxon, for messing with the teaching sector. Some information that came out, I think it might have been announced on Friday. We didn't cover off on it yesterday, at least anyway. And this is the new, it's not necessarily a new syllabus, but a new way of teaching in schools mathematics as instructed by Mr. Luxon, our hairless leader. And we thought we need to get an expert in to talk to us about this. So he is the principal's representative from Te Tai Tokoro. He's also a principal with some 40 plus years experience. He is the best first name in the world. It is Pat Newman joining us tonight. Pat, good evening to you, sir.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
How can you say that without saying it? Kia ora. Kia ora.
Yeah. I know. Honestly, I'm very much looking forward, because it shows the uttermost ridiculous thing you could possibly. It's like if you're going. It's like you might as well put no Māori symbolism on this invitation to the Māori New Year. It's just bizarre. Utterly
We
bizarre.
could refer to him as Paulie Goldie-Smith.
Right. Let's have a look at this. You've put out a press release today. And let me just read the first paragraph of your press release. We want to talk about structured mathematics and this government's insistence not just to implement it, but to implement it 12 months faster than they were going to implement it last time. The TTPA, Te Tai Tokoro Principals Association, has put out a press release, and it says this in the first paragraph. Aotearoa's choir boy of crisis, Christopher Crisis Luxon, strikes again. As always, never let the evidence get in the way of a good story. He misuses the suspect data gathered in mid-2022 on math achievement in New Zealand schools to authorise the dogmatic one solution works for all mandating of pedagogy in New Zealand education. So we were trying to read between the lines what you're actually trying to say there. We were a bit unclear about that, Pat. But I thought what we'd do to start the whole thing off with...
You must be a politician if you're unclear about it.
This is actually from RNZ. It's both Christopher Luxon and Chris Hipkins, 60 seconds each, talking about this issue, and then we'll get into it. Let's have a listen to what they had to say. If we actually had to listen to what they had to say, would be good, I guess. Just talk amongst yourselves. Nothing to see here.
Any minute now.
Any minute now.
The assessment moved at the end of last year to be in year, looking at year 8 versus a multi-year band. What we're focused on is making sure we fix the problem, and whether it's 45% or whether it's 22%, we've got a problem in maths. And when we can actually cut it year by year and we see 3 out of our 5 kids are actually a year or more behind, 4 out of 5 are actually not at the standard they need to be to take on high school, that's a big problem. That's why we've moved very fast.
For consistency purposes, wouldn't it be better to use the assessment data that goes with the correct curriculum?
I would just say to you, outside of this place, in New Zealand, if you're a parent, you want to know that your kids are actually where they need to be at the standard they need to be at going into high school. And when 4 out of 5 of our kids in year 8 are not at the math standard, that's a big problem. And we can debate and discuss that all day long if you want to, inside baseball process conversations, or we actually go out there and we fix it for New Zealanders, and that's what we're doing.
Are schools going to have to defer their art and music curriculums in order to prioritise maths?
We've made it very clear there's must-do stuff and there's nice-to-do stuff, and we want everything focused on the must-do. And at the moment, that means teaching our kids to read and teaching them to do mathematics. And if everything else has to be delayed as a consequence of that, so be it.
We do know that there is a gap here around between years 4 and 8. Kids seem to lose progress in areas like maths and literacy during that time. But we've got really good objective data that goes back over a longer period so that we can benchmark and we can compare results from year to year. The data they're using now doesn't have any historical comparators. We can't benchmark that against anything because it's literally data that's been made up from assessing kids against a standard that they haven't been taught.
The Prime Minister said that he doesn't care if other curriculums, like in art or music, are delayed in favour of maths. Do you think there's anything to be concerned about there in terms of neglecting other subjects?
Well, the government talks about wanting to follow evidence. If you're following evidence in education, all the evidence is pretty clear. If kids are learning from a balanced curriculum, then they're more likely to succeed than if you're teaching them a very narrow curriculum. Other countries around the world who have tried to narrow down the curriculum, policies like No Child Left Behind in the US are really good examples of this. You actually see overall student achievement going backwards in the areas that you're trying to improve because you narrow down the focus so much. If we want our kids' educational achievement to improve, they have to be learning from a balanced curriculum.
So there you go. Thanks to RNZ for that. How about no even questions, Pat? Your response to what you've just heard.
Well, a couple of things. One, first, for the first time, Chris Hipkins actually spoke 100% truth. I couldn't believe it. Not that, it says he tells lies, but the whole lot of it was very valid. The other point that I'd like to make is that I can't understand how a person who has no understanding of education is making educational decisions. Mm-hmm. I really just can't. A man that can stand up there and say arts, music, etc., social studies, science are not important is beyond me, absolutely beyond me. And I think what's very unfair is that he is marginalising and scaring parents. And this is the problem we've had. This government has marginalised and scared parents about the lack of achievement and the lack of that. Can I jump to the chase straight away and say to you, the year 8 kids he's talking about, they started learning mathematics under the national government's last great experiment called National Standards.
Yeah.
And at that time, the professionals like myself got up and said, if you go down this track, you'll have problems. They didn't listen. We now have some problems about that year 8 time. And now they're proposing another thing that's not going to work. It's loony bins time, but it's our kids that these people are playing with. Yeah. What people forget is that data was taken from around about the 2022. Guess what was happening then? In 2022, where were most of the kids? They were in and out of school. They were at home half the time because it was the middle of COVID. I'm not saying that mathematics is where it should be, all right? I'm not saying that, or even language. But what I am saying is we've been screaming for help from all governments, both Labour and National, for years, 30 that I can think of, saying you removed all the support for teaching curriculum and helping teachers know curriculum. It was called the advisory services. Roger Douglas and his mates Preble decided it was better to give fly-by-nighters contracts to come in and do it, to teach teachers how to do it. They removed all the supports. And we've been screaming out and saying, give us back the advisory services. If they turned around now and said, look, we're going to really listen. We know you need help. We know that not every kid is succeeding. Then we, instead of spending I think it's about 80 million now they're talking, and a few other 100 million they're wasted elsewhere. If they said, we'll turn that into giving advisory services so you have people in all curriculum areas in your schools, whenever you need them, following up with you, working in your classroom beside your teachers, showing you how to update, I would have been applauding them. Instead, so he can make a big announcement in front of his National Party meeting on Sunday, he used our children as cannon fodder. He brought up the mathematics thing before anyone was even ready. The ministry didn't even know he was making the announcement, or the ones out in the regions didn't know. But he needed something to look big. And he used our kids. And he talks about how it will be great because every kid will be getting taught the same. Good God, man, has he got no kids? Which kids all learn the same? What is the difference between some of our kids who may be under trauma, may be under abuse, all those sort of things? What's the difference between kids that are bright and slow? About special needs, about neurodiversity. Is the man bloody well cuckoo? If he is, he shouldn't be running the country.
On that point, well, I was going to share this later on, but he was on breakfast this morning as well, talking about structured mathematics. He goes, it's good because it's a consistent way to do several things, including, this is what he said.
But actually having a consistent way of teaching both maths and reading is important, and it helps all kids that are struggling, and certainly kids that need to be extended.
So, consistent way of teaching it. I mean, like,
teach by numbers, page 1 to 5 today, page 6 to 10 tomorrow. Yeah. If you miss a page, you are held back. Too bad.
Because surely the way kids learn is all different. I mean, I'm not saying surely like asking, we know that. So how can you have a one-size-fits-all teaching model if kids all learn differently?
Look, just on reading alone, we know there are 27, probably more, but at least 27 different ways of teaching reading. And some of the experts actually said in the past, most kids need a bit of all the 27.
Right.
And I have got nothing, for instance, in reading around phonics that's needed for some kids. It's bloody great for some kids and they need it. In fact, all kids need a bit of it. Mm-hmm. But to say it's the only way to teach.
Yeah.
We might as well just shove them in front of the computer and let them follow, page 1, as I said, page 2, page 3. It means my profession is not allowed to do what we know. Can you imagine him standing up and saying, we're going to tell the surgeons how to actually take a heart out and put it back into a person? Not just this is what you'll do and how often, but this is exactly the steps you'll take. What makes him think he's got the mandate to say that?
Hey, Pat, I've got a question for you, right? I understand that no government has serviced your sector well enough all the way through, but something feels different about this to me. We've spoken a few times. Do you feel personally angry about this? Am I reading that right? Is there something different about this?
When I heard this crap this morning, I actually thought about penning my resignation.
Wow.
And that takes a lot. I'm 71. I've been doing the principal's job since 81. I've been teaching my first year of 76. I still do it because I can do it and I enjoy it and I'm contributing. But I sat there and I thought, this guy's, sorry, I'm going to say he's a wanker. When we have a situation where the training colleges, the universities training, are shutting down their courses because no one's applying to be a teacher, when we can't get relievers, when most schools, and I'll say most, are having to double up classrooms when people are sick because we can't get relieving teachers, when teachers are walking out of the classrooms, do you think that's the time to pile the shit on us? Instead, you should be sitting there listening to those that know what they're talking about instead of their pet friends, putting the decent resourcing in, and I told you the resourcing we needed, and actually making my profession once again a profession that the young, good, keen people coming out of universities and coming out of schools want to be. And it's an indictment on this government. It's an indictment on Chris's government that we are in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, the question is often asked, and I don't know if it's a fair question or not, but Labor were there for 6 years. You talked about national standards, and I think that's fair to point to that about the 15-year-olds and that under national standards, but Labor was there for 6 years. They could have changed, tweaked, done something else. They chose not to. So they do bear some responsibility for this as well?
I've just said that.
Yeah.
They made they started off really well, and they did something that I was really excited with. They went right around the country and they had meetings with parents, with professionals, and with everybody. And they asked what did they want for education. I don't remember that. And what came out of that from the parents strongly was the opposite of what this guy in Wellington is now saying. Parents said, yes, we want the kids to learn to read and to write, but we want the whole rounded child.
Yeah. Yeah.
This wanker down there just said it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to be concerned with here. And some of it, like, when I heard that Luxon was using Singapore as an example, coincidentally, I was catching up with a mate of mine that I haven't seen for ages because he's been overseas, and his wife, who has come here from Singapore, has experience in Singapore education, and she said it is crushing. The expectations that they place on their children there for it's not. It's for excellence. It's whoever's at the top, no matter how you get there. She talks about kids that go into school before 8 in the morning. They get out. They go straight into hours of tutoring afterwards because they have to be at the top of the achievement.
Yep. They go home and do 2 or 3 hours of private tuition, getting paid for, so that they. Yeah. He doesn't tell you that.
No.
He doesn't.
No, he expects us to not know these things.
Yeah, he quotes. I've forgotten that. God, I must be getting senile a little bit. He quotes the country over in Europe, starts with F, about how that is a marvelous country on education and that. Well, part of it is a bit dogmatic, but that country he's talking about has for 40 years had an agreement amongst all the political parties on the direction of education.
Right.
We as a profession have asked and asked and asked, can you as political parties not sit down, why can't you sit down with us, with the parents, come up with a broad perspective so that we don't have what's happened for all of my career. Every 2.5 years we get a new master. They call them the minister or her. They come along with their pet theories. And every 2.5 years, they say, stop what you are doing in education. I've got a better idea. I don't know where the hell they get it from, usually over the teacups. I've got a better idea. Do this. Then in 2.5 years, someone else comes along. And then someone else. And they wonder, when we're under-resourced and they're doing that, why we have a crisis in education. It's not the teachers at fault. It's the bloody politicians.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about all politicians, the party system. They need to sit down and say, our kids, our hospitals, by the way, should be done the same way, are too important. And we need to have a direction that we all agree on. It doesn't have to be everything, but the main thrust. And let us get on with the job and resources to do the job. Instead of rubbishing us, threatening us. He's now threatening, because I don't know if you picked up the other one, and they're going to tell Aero, when we were just getting to work with Aero in a nice, productive, positive way to help kids. But now they're going to direct them to become the Gestapo police again. And if we aren't coming up to standards, they'll send in the minions to make us. And if we still don't, we'll be fired. Well, the man's again on the cuckoo land because there's no one to replace us. Sorry, I am, as you picked up, fairly... Are you allowed to say pissed off here?
You can say fucked
yeah.
off, you can say pissed off, you can say whatever you want, Pat. Up to you.
There's not even any detention. We haven't rolled that out.
No lines. Won't give you any lines. Won't wash your mouth out with soap. I've got a question though, because I went to teacher training college in Auckland, Epsom there, and I think I remember in the late 1990s there being a change to what was considered a core curriculum subject. And for some reason, I have a memory that says dance and drama became kind of a core curriculum subject. It's not the case anymore, is it? What would be considered the core curriculum subjects? And why I'm asking that is when he talks about the nice to haves, art and music, are they technically not core curriculum subjects anymore?
No,
is that how?
Again, oh no, I've got to be careful what I say. We have a curriculum, and all subjects are involved, including art, music, drama, science, social studies are a crucial one, but most of them, a lot of them are not being taught now. And why are they not being taught? They're not being taught because we haven't got that advisory service to go around and teach people how to teach social studies, how to do the arts and music. The model that they have to help is that they let contracts, but the contracts are only let by the ministry depending on what is the whim of the current minister. So the current minister at the moment has got a whim on reading, for instance. So in theory, they're letting contracts in reading. I don't think we've had any contracts in reading in major way for years. So a lot of teachers don't know how to teach those subjects anymore. And that's why I'm saying, instead of this rubbish, can you imagine if we had highly skilled practitioners throughout the country in the arts and science and reading and maths, able to go into schools, spend time in the classrooms, going over things with the teachers, refreshing the kids, all that sort of thing, what would happen? Yet they go down this line, which is do as you're told. We know better because we ran Air New Zealand and because we're now supposedly in Parliament. We know better than you. Do as you're told. Well, maybe they couldn't do as they're told because their behaviour really does need something done about it.
As you say, the aforementioned press release, the last line, what we have instead is an approach more akin to, quote, I'm the chairman of the board, although I know nothing about education, just do as you're told, as you finish that press release. I have a question for you. I currently have an 18-year-old who is in her first year of teacher training. She's at university in Otago, and she's studying to be a teacher. What advice have you got for her?
My advice is to study pedagogy. My advice is to study really strongly how children learn. My advice is to become a teacher. And my advice is to stand up for what you believe and what you've learned. I probably may have portrayed a different thing, but as I said, I've been teaching since 76. I could retire. I could have retired a couple of years ago. But it's still the best job in the world. When you walk into a school and the kids are there and you're talking and you're relating to them and they're all jokes aside, come out giving you hugs, making sure you know that you're welcome, you get revitalised. You can't get that sitting in Parliament pontificating about things you don't know but pretending you do. You can't get that in many jobs. So I would say to your 18-year-old, it's one of the toughest jobs out there. It's not one of the highest paid, but by God, there's a reward with it. But just don't let the pricks take that away from you.
Chewie, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, look, I mentioned this before we went live on the show. A friend of mine who's a secondary teacher and has been for a couple of years now, who understands neurodiverse students, who is extremely passionate about what she does. She's been umming and ahhing about it for a few months, but this was the final nail in the coffin for her. She handed in her notice. She signed up. I think she's heading to Brisbane They're certainly happy to take our teachers. So I think this is really, really going to cost us. And I think that the thing that you identified, that you get a government that wants to make changes to education on a 4-year timescale, maybe an 8-year timescale if we're lucky. Nobody is sitting there and going, what's our 20-year timescale from when they start to when they finish? What are we wanting to crank out here? Like they talk about maths and they've got to hit these standards, and everybody's got to learn the
Yeah, but whose standards and where have they got the standard? But no one's actually questioned where they got these standards from.
I mean, I look at my own experience as a neurodiverse student who hated maths. It was deeply unpleasant. It didn't click for me at all. And it took a teacher going way off book to get me engaged in that and to get me there. Now, that's not learning to the same standard. She found the standard that worked for me to get me somewhere. It wasn't how everybody else was learning. I really take umbrage with him basically putting a value on what these kids are learning.
Yeah.
And it's maths is up here, high value. High value is maths. Arts, who the fuck needs that? Can't run a business on arts. It's just, and to come from someone whose kids weren't in the New Zealand education system. They learned overseas. His direct input into this is so fucking minimal to be offensive. And at the time when they're talking about charter schools and they won't have to follow all of these rules.
By the way, they don't.
So
The charter schools don't have to follow the curriculum. They don't even have to have people that are teachers.
Which is completely hypocrisy, because if they're saying this, we've done this before, Pat, they're like going, we've got the best way forward. This is the best way forward. This is going to be best for the children. Oh, you guys don't have to do this. You can do whatever you want. You know, it's like, hang on, you've either got the best way and they should be doing it, or you don't have the best way and you should shut up about it.
Yeah, but you've forgotten one thing.
Yep.
This is not based on educational pedagogy. This is based on a political ideology. The decision, the whole lot of this is based on a political ideology. You look what they are aiming for. They are aiming for not the neurodiverse, yet the neurodiverse to me are the ones that make society exciting. They're not aiming for that. They're aiming for, it's a bit like what you call the, I'm being very rude here, but the St. Cuthbert sort of syndrome where you've got 4 or 5 boys and girls, rather elite schools in Auckland, and they tend to socialise a lot together. They tend to intermarry together, and they tend to keep all the millions of the families all within the tight circle. And I think this is very much around identifying who are the cannon fodder, and who's going to make the money. And, and so we have charter schools and all the rest of it. But you know, one day we'll wake up and the mess will be still there. I guarantee you, if we carry on down this track, we will have children reading worse. Even though we're getting good results at the moment, eventually we'll have children reading worse, and we'll have children doing mathematics worse.
Hey, Pat, it's been fantastic to talk to you. We've got a few chats and stuff that are in there, but they're more about the subject matter, so we'll let you go. There is one I want to send to you, though. It's from Raywin. Raywin says, you're an awesome principal, Pat. My daughter and 3 moka went to Horohora Primary. Great, straight talking person. So that's just to you from Raywin in the chat right now. And other than that, you can come back anytime. When I get to ask one question, you talk for 25 minutes. It makes my job super easy, Pat.
Yeah, some people call me a kahawahanui. Do you know what that is? It's called a big mouth.
Okay. Yeah. But it's been brilliant. And look, this is an important conversation. And the good thing about the little community we've got here is they will share this left, right, and centre, and these words will go out. So thank you for sharing them.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. You take
Thanks,
care,
Pat.
both of you.
All the best.
Arohanui.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay. Just that idea of cannon fodder. You know, the idea, like as we were talking, I was going, we've talked about this before too. Because what they're doing is they're preparing the clones to work in the factories whilst the elites, the other people, get to own the factories. And that's the system that they're setting up. It's a class system, isn't it? It's like you guys need to know how to do your ABCs 1, 2, 3s, and that's it, because that's all that needs to happen when you're screwing on caps to bottles in the factory that my son-in-law owns. That's how it feels.
Like I said this before when we were talking about their changes to the curriculum and what they wanted to achieve. They are teaching kids for a world that doesn't exist. You know, you talk, and I see a comment echoing this in the chat as well. You know, they talk about arts not being important, so you know schools can just put that on the back burner. We've got to get it in maths. Creatives are hugely important. They're the designers. They're the writers.
Yep.
You know, they're the actors. You know, not everyone is going to fit in the same box. And this is something that the educational sector has been saying since the 80s, when we started to move away from learning by rote. Is that like, oh, fuck, there's a whole bunch of kids that learn differently. Yeah. It used to be like the kids that would pick up learning by rote and you know, hitting those achievement check marks, they would go all the way through school. Where kids like me that didn't fit in that book would go to a fucking trade school and learn how to be a grease monkey or join the army or something. That's the world that they're trying to think of. Now, Luxon's insulated from that. He's never had to deal with it. His kids haven't gone through the New Zealand education system. They all were educated overseas in North America. So it's the disengagement that is striking me with this. It is so very clearly not what educators want. It's not what they've been feeding back. It's not taking in not only the last, say, 4 years as a reason why there might be a bit of a dip in things, because it's something that we've never had to deal with. But it's not even taking into account the last time they were at the wheel. It is full steam ahead. Damn the torpedoes. Yes, it's ideological. And if you don't want to fit in that box, well, we're opening a range of charter schools. Hope your parents have got their checkbooks out.
Yeah.
Because the government's got their checkbooks out. They're going to pour money into charter schools and absolutely leave our mainstream schools, our state schools, gold fishing on a hot pavement.
Yeah.
Rather than help them.
I just think it's entirely fair that
why
that tangata whenua, who were here first, who are an equal partner in the treaty, should have the opportunity to have people representing their views in our democratic institutions.
Okay, but the response to that is not everybody believes that the treaty is a partnership, and that is one of the issues that David Seymour is pushing pretty hard. The idea of a treaty as a partnership goes back to 1975. That wasn't an issue before. That is something that has been created. And there are a lot of people, myself included, who think the idea of assigning separate political rights.
See, this is sort of dishonest. You know, this is where people jump around with their position and they can make one. Like what we often say is we challenge people from ACT, like David Seymour, if you want to bring this equality based on race, what about based on gender? What about based on disability? What about based on religion? Because there are also places where we discriminate against legally. And that's kind of the point that that Mr. Hooton gets to. He doesn't quite explain it like that, but it's sort of where he goes as well.
Well, they're not right. Separate. They're equal.
But we are putting people in different categories based on their race, and I think,
or gender, or sex, or disability, or age, voting over 18, pension at 65, or religion, only male priests. We do it all the time, but these guys only have a problem when it's based on race. But we do it all the time, and they never have a problem with the other areas.
Think that is.
We're not. They have a choice. They don't have to.
No, they don't. But I couldn't go and sign up for the Maori Ward.
No, but you can't vote in the Otara electorate either because you don't live there.
But those are not comparable pieces of analysis. We are saying
they're arbitrary. Lines are drawn on a map, and these people can vote here, and these people can vote there.
Those lines are not drawn up by race.
So,
and The issue that
Exactly, Matthew Hooton. So why are you so fucking focused on making it all appear equal based on race when all the other protected classes you don't care about? You don't care that you don't get to vote in Dunedin because you don't live in Dunedin. You care that you don't get to vote on the Māori ward because you're not Māori. It's the same. And just because we say race, it's just a category like every other category, but racists and people playing the race card like to be able to get in there and stir up their base by going, unfair, unfair. Look what the brown people get that we don't get. Look, they never go, look what the farmers get, what we don't get. Look what the retired get, what we don't get. They go, look what the brown people get. And they build this tension and this fucking racial division. They're the guys who are saying, oh, it's so racially divided in New Zealand. Yeah, because you guys are the ones trying to make this huge amplification of something that's not there and is not worried about in any other protected class. And if you don't know what protected class means, it means the class within the Human Rights Commission. Race is one of them. You don't care about any of the other ones. You only care about race, which is why when Matthew Hooton says you can't vote in Otara, and he goes, yeah, but it's not to do with race. It's a group. It's a class of people, and you're not allowed to vote there because you're not a part of them. It's no different. There's a bit to go on this tree, but you should jump in, sir.
I just literally want to point out his most egregious reframing of history, that none of this mattered until 1975.
Yeah.
None of this mattered till 1975 because the European structures that we put in this country and our European governments roundly ignored the treaty for near 100 years, to the point where Māori stood up and said it can't go on, and the Treaty of Waitangi, or the Waitangi Tribunal came out of that, out of protests and hikois and people standing up and going, we've put up with this for too long. We fought for this country. We went overseas and died for this country, and we're still getting treated like shit. And that is the world that ACT want to reinvent and just go wibbly wobbly woo. Everybody's equal. We're all white now, unless you go in front of the courts or need to go to hospital. You know, then you're not, then you're a brown person, but you'll be dead soon. It'll be fine. And I don't think that these chuds have really realized how much things have shifted in this country and how much people see through this bullshit. You saw someone like, what was his name? Batchelor in his... Julian Batchelor's traveling clown show of racism being roundly hounded at every location he went to. People don't want it. We don't want a divided country. We want an equitable country.
This is where we bring up the image, the differences between equal and equitable again. Hey, welcome back, whānau. Looking forward to catching up with you on Monday as we go back to being live. Just a huge thanks to our patrons, who some of you have been a part of us since 2022, 2023. Crumbs, it's a couple of years now. Really appreciate you guys. The patrons are the people. Yes, we've got the store open and stuff, but the patrons are the people who help us do this thing on a monthly basis. When we're doing pre-records like we are right now, and obviously the super chats are down, and even though the store is open, it's obviously down because we're not here every night saying, hey, look at the store. Hey, look at this. It's the patrons that help us get through this. So basically the patrons literally enable us to have some time off, which we desperately need. And also pay for a whole bunch of other things as well. I'm going to do some work up in Waitangi. Patrons are some of the people helping to pay and cover some of that work whilst I'm up there for Waitangi Day. If you like what we do, if you're a fan of it and you want to do something more than just share our content, then what you can do is head to patreon.com/Big Hearing News, as it says at the bottom of the screen, and just do what you can do. I mean, like, the most important thing is that we have your eyeballs and your earballs. Is that a thing? But other than that, you know, telling people about us, lots of ways you can be advocates. If one of those ways is also a small financial contribution per month, then patreon.com/Big Hearing News. If it's not going to jump up and down on you. Enjoy the content. help support us some other way by sharing it around and telling people about us, being our advocates, buying some stickers, sticking them by Parliament, which I've been getting pictures from you guys, sticking those Nicky No Bites ones up by Parliaments. And just keeping on. So patreon.com/Big Hearing News if you want to be a part of that. Thank you for all those who are supporting us, and let's get back to the best ofs. So let's have a look at some of the conversation with the Prime Minister this morning, because one of the things I heard, and I don't think it comes up in this first clip, I will do my best to keep my powder dry, people, is that they are, whether they're prepared to say it or not, what they're planning on doing will actively put more children into poverty. Without question, it will happen. And then what this government and their right-wing troll-based supporters will say is, well, it's a parent's choice. It's like, you will put more children into poverty without question. Now, I'll
look
left
at
off the
that
first
face before you hit play. Just look at it. Let it fucking sink in. If that's not the face of National, I don't know what is.
They've just had a
goober.
Basically, he's just sold the whole thing about why they're going to do it and why it's going to work. We're not going to play any of that bullshit, because Daniel Faitaua starts off with quite a good question. He asks if they've actually spoken to any beneficiaries about this plan.
Have you spoken to beneficiaries, and what's been their response?
I haven't personally, but it's been a policy of ours.
Surprise, isn't it?
The election, and we've just said it's about fairness and it's about rights and responsibilities, and that's the deal we have with each other in New Zealand.
Do you not think, Prime Minister, you should be listening to beneficiaries, at least hearing what they have to say regarding this, because this is the lifestyle that they lead. These are the poorest people in our society.
Yes, and we want them to get off welfare and into work, because that is fundamentally better for them.
Daniel does a really good job, because I know the questions about to come screaming out of your mouth as it would out of my mouth. They were looking for work. We won't even have to say it. Daniel asks it next. It's perfect.
Families and their future. And so what we're talking about here is actually the people that are on the job seeker benefit, who are deemed able to work, can work, and should be working.
But do you think you should have spoken to them?
Well, our minister has met with beneficiaries. Our Ministry of Social Development has met with beneficiaries. But I just asked you to take a step back and say we're focusing on a very. This is a new
thing. You know how we like to identify what the PR team has been doing on the ninth floor. The PR team last week has been doing just take a step back. I think he says it 3 times in this. And my favourite one is when he says, not in this clip, but another one, just take a step back and focus on what we're talking about. Whereas the previous 2 sentences, he's been blaming Labour. But he's like, no, but when you question me, we need to focus on what we're talking about, after he's just been not focusing on what they're talking about and blaming Labour because Labour bad.
A small number of people, I think, that actually are not meeting their obligations, and all we're reminding them about is to say, hey, listen, you've got people watching your show today that have got up early, going to work, paying their taxes, getting through paycheck to paycheck, and that money is expected to go to support those that actually need it in a temporary place.
See, this is what we're saying with the last guest, the good people who are going to work are looking after you bad people who are still in your pajamas watching this show.
As they look for new work, and we're doing everything we can to support them. We've got 4,000 more phone case managers coming on.
So this is where he goes into the next part of the conversation. But did you want to comment on that one first of all, Chewie? Because we're about to move on to the next part of the conversation, which is going to be the obvious question: where are the jobs?
Hey, chat, just want to know if an unknown phone number calls your cell phone, what do you do?
Don't answer it. Oh, I'll answer a phone number. I don't answer unlisteds.
Yep. I just let them go to voicemail.
Yeah.
You know, and under this, does that qualify as putting me on that orange light?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, again, he backpedals there and goes, oh, there's actually not that many people. That's not that many people.
Yeah, so why?
You know, we this tiny percentage of welfare sponges and moochers. You know, he'll change when he was pitching it yesterday. You know, there's people who've got to get off the dole. I am a tough, decisive leader, and I'm going to punch down on those at the bottom because that's what I was voted for. That's my mandate. I hate the poor. You know, this man that has never had an interaction with a government department to the level that he's enforcing on people. He has a perception of what someone on a job seeker support is, and it's not charitable, and he's never interacted with someone. He's definitely not reached out and got his own take on it. He's happy for his other middle managers to go out there. Look, Erica staff has spoken to Louise Upson. Somebody's spoken to unemployed, I guess. But I won't. Yuck. Why would I? Like, out of touch.
Just
massively out of touch. He does not know what a person on job seeker is. He has a right-wing idea of what one is, because it's always that sort of thing. Someone who's happy to cruise on this pitiful amount of money that we try to say is support to get you through the tough times. He's put thousands of people, tens of thousands of people on that job seeker benefit in the last 6 months. And he hasn't spoken to one of them.
Yeah.
One.
As an aside, just so people know, because people, in fact, we had when we had our meetup a couple of Saturdays ago, one of the things that was said to us is you should try and get some people from the opposing side on. So this week, again, not for the first time, Christopher Luxon, Nicola Willis, and David Seymour have all received emails being asked to come on for a conversation. That was sent in the weekend. Haven't heard anything yet. There's something else I sent an email out on today, but we'll talk about that more later in the show. But just so you know, if anyone ever kind of goes, oh, echo chamber, we are. Everyone who does this kind of thing has an element of echo chamber, but it's not because we don't attempt to engage. They just don't respond. We haven't responded yet this week, so we'll see what happens. Right, the second clip is talking about where are the jobs. Now, there's a very good point made by Daniel Whaitawa. I'm giving him his props that Mr. Luxon is about to talk all about the resources that they're putting into this. And Daniel goes, so there's plenty of resources, but where are the jobs? It's a very good point and very well said.
We've got 4,000 more phone case managers coming on stream. We've got 2,100 more community.
So they're spending money on it.
Job counsellors helping as well, particularly with young people 18 to 24. We've got 42,000 of those young Kiwis actually on unemployment. We want to get people into work. You know, that's what this has to be about. But all we're saying is, look, you know, all we're expecting you to do is meet some pretty basic obligations to get yourself to work.
So it sounds like the resources are there.
Yeah.
Where are the jobs?
Well, the reality is unemployment has been rising. As you know, we're in a tougher economic cycle. And it's not about not being able to get a job. It's about doing everything you can to be prepared to get one. And so
where are the...
Hang on. So it's not about getting a job. It's about cosplaying on how to get a job. That's what he's saying. He's saying if you don't get a job, it's fine. But you got to make sure that you look like you're ready to work. What? So if I turn up with a hard hat on and carrying a hammer, is that going to be enough? Because I look like I'm ready to work. I look like I'm prepared to go. It's just what this seems like is this is management speak, Chewie. This is KPIs, this. Because it's not actually, he's just actually said it, it's not actually going to get people jobs. This is not going to see employment numbers increase because we already know unemployment is going to increase because of this government. Yes, the numbers were always going to increase, but we believe, and we've been advised from economists, that it's a choice that National has made through their policies to have the number of unemployment go over 5%. I accept that from the experts. That means this government is making choices for more people to be on that job seeker. And then they're saying, make sure you look like you're ready for a job after we've created an environment for you to lose your job. It's all pandering. It's all bumper sticker stuff. It's them being able to say, tough on crime, tough on beneficiaries. Chewie?
Pat, if we could take a step back. It's even more than that. It's introducing a level of desperation into the job market. So you've lost your job and you're on job seeker and you know that Wins is going to come after you because of that. You need to take a job, any job, at any wage. You're not going to hold out for the right job, something that's in your area of training or experience or has the right pay packet, or maybe it's in the right area where you live. You have to take a job, any job. And if you've got a job, you don't want to be fed into that machine. So you're certainly not going to rock the boat. You're not going to ask for a pay rise because you know that there's 5, 6, 7, 8% unemployed that are happy to swoop in and do your job cheaper. Mm-hmm. And that is great for a business owner, great for a factory owner, great for someone with an orchard or just general casual construction work. It's great for all of those guys. They pay under the barrel. And that is the job market that he is creating.
Yeah.
Or created.
Well, but also remember, who are the people losing their jobs right now? We hear about all the public servants. We hear about middle management. We hear about bureaucrats losing jobs. And you know what he fucking said today? Oh, you should be a digger driver. That's a cool job. I'm like, what?
Yeah, guess what?
It's the New Zealand version of learn to code.
That.
Yeah, same. So did I. You know how in America they told all those people who worked in mines they should learn to code? Well, New Zealand's version is be a digger driver. Okay, so the press secretary for some group that's just lost their job because bureaucracy has been cut back in Wellington, be a digger driver. What did you learn, Chewie?
It costs, I believe, between $600 and $900 to get your ticket to drive a digger, and there are currently nationwide 9 jobs. So there you go. Fantastic.
But you could be one.
So we have hit this tipping point, right? All of the tradies, all of those manual jobs, they're fucking off where the money is.
Yeah.
That's Australia. And we're also losing the skilled jobs. The people that had that your public service experience. We're losing our nurses. We're losing our police. We're just losing. And everybody that is left is going to get tarred with the same brush of being a welfare sponge who isn't doing what they're not meeting their obligations. Now, I have had, in my working experience, thankfully, a relative brief period of interaction with WINS when they're on this. And when they're talking about meeting your obligations and being ready for work, what they mean is that they're going to call you up and drag you in to a seminar about personal hygiene, about how to... I'm not even kidding, Pat.
Yeah.
Personal hygiene. An hour and a half mandatory lecture about how to fucking wash yourself.
All right.
Think that you've got your personal hygiene sorted, don't need to go to that workshop. You're not meeting your obligations. Sanctions. You know,
Okay.
in my personal experience, hey, I wasn't full-time employed. I had 3 part-time permanent jobs. Didn't meet the obligations. Turned down full-time temporary work that would have cost me those 3 part-time jobs. Not meeting my obligations. This is the tick box fucking thing that they're going to head down to. I dealt with people in Lower Hutt that would come in and go, got any jobs? No, I'm sorry, I don't have any work going. Can you sign my form that I asked you? I have to meet my obligations. None of these are actively trying to put people in work. They are not trying to solve that problem. The problem that they are trying to solve is they want to be seen to be tough on the poor, to keep the work market and wages down for their donors, for their voters who love this shit, who love punching down on these people.
Yep. All right, we're going to keep going. This is still talking about the jobs, and then we're going to get into a part about where are the evidence that sanctions works.
And to be prepared to get one. And so
where are the jobs? Well, the jobs... There's a tough labour market out there. Well, so where are the jobs? Because our unemployment figures show 33,000 more New Zealanders.
So hang on. Is 33,000 jobs, Chewie, bigger than 9 digger drivers? Is that number bigger? I'm not very good with maths.
I think I'm going to have to go for a WINS seminar on how to work a calculator to find out.
Yep, thank you.
Jobless compared to this time last year, with the unemployment rate sitting at a 3-year high.
Yeah.
So where are the jobs?
And that's exactly why we're working incredibly hard to make sure that we actually get inflation under control, we get interest rates down, we get the economy growing, and we get more employment opportunities for people. Yes, unemployment's rising up. In the context of New Zealand's history, it's still pretty low, and there's opportunities out there for people. With respect to, I was talking to people in construction wanting on the weekend. I was talking to people earlier last week about opportunities in horticulture. So there are jobs there, but the point is,
opportunities
it's not
in
about
horticulture,
people or sanctioning people who can't, who are not getting a job.
Picking.
It's about doing everything you can and taking your responsibility seriously to prepare yourself to be able to take that job.
So, as we said, it's cosplaying. As long as you've got a briefcase and you've done your hair, it looks like you're ready for a job, Chewie. Hey, I'm going to just keep rolling into the next one. We had a good chat about that one just because we've got a couple of clips to go. This one's shorter. That's only 60 seconds. Again, great question from Daniel Whaitawa. We want to know about the evidence where sanctions has worked. As we were talking to Kay earlier, lots of stick from this government, not much carrot. I wonder, Chewie, and I don't know how this would work, but if you flipped it, literally did the opposite, rather than saying, if you don't attend these things, we're going to cut your benefit. What about if you did attend them, we'll give you an extra $20 in your pay packet? Wouldn't that be a better way of thinking? Wouldn't that be carrot over stick? Don't know. I always remember hearing when I was a very young parent, meaning had young kids, someone saying to me, when your kids are playing in the front yard, rather than saying to them, don't play on the street, you say to them, stay in the yard. Gives them the focus. Does the same thing, but let's keep playing in the yard rather than stay off the street. And it feels a bit the same. Carrot. My mum used to say, what is it? You catch more flies with honey than vinegar? Wonder if this government could get a lesson from my old mum. All right, evidence that sanction works.
What evidence are you looking at that shows sanctions do help people get back?
Daniel, you've made a mistake straight away. What evidence are you looking at? Do you know who you're talking to? Do you know these are the guys who literally refuse to look at evidence, have stated they won't read it?
Well, you just got to look at the last 6 years under the previous government.
This is the evidence. Look at the previous government. That's the evidence. Look at the previous government.
You had unemployment at 3.2%. You had job vacancies in every sector in every region of the country, and you had 70,000 more people added to job
the
sector.
unemployment figures. 33,000
sure.
more. So we can talk about the previous government, but
I'm just trying to give you a sense of, in terms of you asked about evidence, and what I can say is I can look at the history of that and say that didn't work.
What didn't work? You haven't. All you've said is what happened under Labour. You have given no evidence for what actually the situation was, what the economy was. What evidence have you got there for it? And this is where he's about to tell us that we need to stay focused on what we're talking about, just while he spent a minute talking about Labour bad, not focusing on what we're talking about.
And then likewise, I can also go back to 2010, where we know that sanctions are a good incentive for people to actually make sure they're compliant with their obligations.
And that's the MSD report that you're referring to back in 2010?
Back in 2010 as an example. But what I just say to you is, again, just stay focused on what we're talking about here.
Right.
The vast majority of Kiwis on JobSeeker doing a great job, fully compliant, meeting their obligations. But it's just not fair, and it's just not right, and it's not in the spirit of the rights and responsibilities we have with each other and to the country if you're going to take the mickey and actually not do some pretty basic things. Get a job profile.
Yes.
Talk to your case manager. Show up for an interview.
There you go. That's that second part done, Chewie. So it's a classic Luxon where he basically does what he then tells the rest of us we're not allowed to do by not staying focused on what we're talking about, which was where is the evidence. He was talking about Labour. So Mr. Luxon, stay focused on what we're talking about. Where is the evidence? Didn't actually answer that question, Joey.
Sanctions aren't an incentive, just through a basic use of that word. If we were talking about what you were talking about, Pat, turn up to these seminars, make sure that you're compliant, you'll get more money. That's an incentive.
Yeah, compliance. We talked about being Orwellian last night.
It's not an incentive, it's a sanction.
But we just remember that the idea we're observing the Orwellian feel around these guys. What does the word compliant feel like? I mean, there's other ways of saying that. You must compliant. It's just, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's an interesting term to pick by this government when the right around the world is appearing more and more authoritarian.
Yep.
Compliance based.
He's also very keen to say, hey, look, the vast majority of people on JobSeeker are good. They're looking for work. They're compliant. Rah, rah, rah. Again, hinting that it's a very small amount of people that he's targeting with this very, very big stick. Where is the question? How many people are we talking? And how much is it costing taxpayers?
Yeah.
We never see that mentioned because it'll be a ridiculously small fucking number that would absolutely be dwarfed by how much money IRD could claw out of corporate tax cheats.
Yeah.
It's solvable. That problem is solvable. And we don't, because they don't want to solve that problem. Full employment, historically, means high inflation, right? Because The jobs that are vacant, everybody's already got jobs. So these employers have to pay more to attract people to fill that position. That means the ball's in the worker's court. That's bad for business, but it also means the worker has more money to spend in the economy. You know, they can pay their debts. They can buy nice things. But that's inflationary. We're constantly trying to balance a seesaw here. And these guys are stacking bricks on the business owner's end.
Yeah, 100%.
Fuck the workers. Our donors have high costs and they don't want them.
Yeah.
We want to depress the working market, and the best way that we can do that is to wade into a stick of unemployed, a clump of unemployed people with a big fucking stick. It's worked for the National Party in the past. I assume that Luxon has a full-body picture of Ruth Richardson on his bedroom wall.
A full-bodied picture.
Yeah. You can only get this by every leader of the National Party gets issued one when they're hatched at whatever empathy-free fucking factory that they're all raised in. Look, I would say to this, like, every prime minister and every minister in charge of wins or whatever unemployment needs to have a couple of months on an unemployment benefit. Move into a state house, leave all of your shit behind, move into a state house on a job seeker benefit, and you tell me what a cruisy fucking life that is. Actually, Mr. Luxon, tell me, in, I don't know, hundreds of meters, how close have you ever gotten to someone that's in that position? Was it accidental? Did you take a wrong turning somewhere? You know, this man has no concept of what it's like. He has no context because for decades he hasn't lived in this country.
Yeah.
Why do we expect that he has, him and only him, his party have the only answers here? They don't. And even when Labor's been in, they've spent all of their time trying to exercise the incredibly damaging policies that National put in place during the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
They're never able to move the needle far enough because Ruth Richardson threw it into the other fucking room. I'm a bit hit up, Pat.
I have to admit, Chewie, I think you're my favourite too, just quietly. Sorry. Okay, let's play the last bit here. And this is the part that I started off by talking about. These policies will, I don't mean could, I mean will put more children into poverty. So you wait till you hear what he's got to say. I won't spoil the surprise. It'll be like Christmas. Everyone will hear it at the same time. What they're going to do when they talk about cuts to people on the benefit with children. They're being very, very generous. Very generous.
For an interview.
Half of those benefits are set to go to a payment card and money management scheme. This was part of your deal with your coalition partner, ACT, and yet they're the so-called party of rights and freedom, yet you're taking a freedom away to decide how people should spend their money.
Well, let's be clear. The rights and responsibilities side of it is you have rights and freedoms as a New Zealander, but you also have duties and responsibilities. And when you take a job seeker benefit, which your fellow New Zealander is paying...
Is it wrong that I say they being politicians in this point in time, the National Party, always talk about the rights and responsibilities of poor people? We never really hear fuck all about it when they're talking about their wealthy mates, do we? Like the rights and responsibilities of paying fair amounts of tax sort of thing, Chewie. But it's always very important to use that attack on the vulnerable and the poor. Yeah, you've got rights, but responsibilities. Well, but hang on, you've got rights, wealthy people, but what are your responsibilities? We just never really hear a government going after them when it comes to responsibilities. They just get a free pass, it seems. Look, I can't do a rant like you. I'm done. It's 45 seconds and that's just me. That's me done. But I got one yes, Pat, in the chat, so I'm happy, not 47 like Chewie got.
Paying for through their taxes, you have a responsibility to do the minimum of what we're asking you to do, which is get your CV together, go to a job interview, check in with your case
How
manager.
many?
Not rocket science.
How many people?
Not difficult. And so what we've got is if you stay, you've got 5 days to get out of amber, which is just get compliant, and that's great. And we're all good.
Sounds like a porn show to me. 5 days to get out of amber.
Get out of amber.
If you're actually persistent and you continue to be non-compliant with your
Okay, hang on. Let's just pause for you and think that's not a bad piece of content. It could be some kind of maybe not Discovery Channel, but some kind of documentary series of Anyway, we'll leave that.
obligations and refusing to do any of those basic things.
And these guys won't even talk to us. Do you ever wonder why, Chewie?
Then yes, you get a series of escalations, and that may mean half your benefit goes on to money management, which then enables you to, you're restricted as to where you can spend half that money at certain retailers. The next piece is you lose half the benefit, and the other piece is you lose the full amount. If you happen to be, if you think about the sanctions, we've seen a big uplift in sanctions being applied this quarter versus last quarter last year. About 90% of them are actually people with no children, and we've also kept it so that if there are dependent children in a household, that you don't lose the full benefit, but you can lose up to half of it.
Oh, how generous are they, Chewie? If you've got kids, you're only going to lose half of your benefit. Now, it doesn't matter that you're paying more than half your benefit in rent, but if you've got kids, you'll only lose, generosity, thy name is Baldilocks. Only half, Chewie. These policies will put children into poverty. If they're already in poverty, technically, it will put them further into poverty. This is the exact definition of knee on the neck of the vulnerable. Chewie.
But remember, there's only a relatively small amount of them. I'm not going to tell you how many. I'm not going to tell you how long they've been unemployed.
How much
I'm not going to tell you how long they've been non-compliant for. Because if he was forced to answer those questions, I think the vast majority of people would go, that's an acceptable cost.
Yep.
Because most people aren't cunts. This payment card thing, right? There's so much that's just being left out there for people to fill in the gaps, right? We're going to put them on payment cards because if we don't, they'll send it on booze and cigarettes and pokies, right? They've pointed out that these cards can only be used at certain retailers. Now, in my job, in my last couple of jobs, actually, I've had interactions with people on these wins cards as they exist now.
Yeah.
So say you're unemployed and your cell phone dies. And of course you need a cell phone to be contactable, both for potential jobs and wins and making sure you're all compliant and that sort of thing. So they give you maybe a grant or something on one of these payment cards. So you look for a phone that you can afford with this grant, and maybe you go into the shop that's got the best price. Now, does that shop accept that payment card?
Mm.
In the case of my last couple of employers, no. There is one shop that sells cell phones that accepts that card. It's the Warehouse.
Right.
So they might not have the best price. That's where they go because they have to. And that's going to be the same thing for groceries. You go and do your grocery shop on one of these payment cards, but God help you if you have something that is on the list of non-compliant items in your whole shopping basket. You won't be able to use it. But it's just patronizing.
But it's actually worse than that, Chewie. Because let's just say it's cigarettes or alcohol, right? Oh, no. Let's just say you have an addiction issue and you haven't got over it yet. What you'll end up doing is you end up saying to somebody else, you give me $120 cash and I'll give you $150 on my card. I'll buy your groceries and you give me $120 for it. So actually what it'll do, it'll end up having people be in more desperation. That's what these cards will do. I've been involved with those cards. When my marriage broke up, I was pretty destitute for a while. I still am kind of, but nothing like that. And it was fine because we were using them for food and it was a pack and save. No problems. It worked for us for that system. But, this is what happens with food stamps in America is people sell them. And they sell them for lesser value than what they're worth, and then they end up being worse off. So and then the government will say, oh, responsibility, same as the children, responsibility. It's not as easy. If you could fold a life up into such an easy package, yeah, sure, fine. Theoretically, life doesn't work like that. Lives don't work like that. There are difficulties in life that aren't solved by a simple tick. It's more difficult. And if you're not going to be nuanced in this, then you are going to cause harm. You are going to put more children into poverty by trying to sanction the parent half of their fucking budget. You're going to do that because you can't go, tick, everyone should fit into these boxes. That's not what society is. That's not what people are. And it is, I mean, I can't think of another word, but it is just bloody evil. It's evil and it's mean to do this to the most vulnerable, poorest people in our country.
This is where UBI comes into it for me, right? There's economic benefits and there's social cohesion benefits, right?
Yeah.
Give people dignity. That is something that is mentioned every time. Like here we hear, if you're on Job Seeker at the moment and you see the leader of this country go on the news and just basically go, well, if we just leave it alone, people stay on Job Seeker because it's fun. That's not true, but that's what the Prime Minister's got up there and said. That's why people talk about dignity. That woman that was in the clip that we watched yesterday that was like, oh, well, sometimes I like to get some coffee and a packet of biscuits.
Yeah.
Extravagant. Definitely go after her. What the fuck? In one of the UBI studies that I've read, I think it was Finland, as they targeted it at people that had addiction issues, long-term homeless, had long-term unemployed, that sort of thing. And they found a tiny percentage of that money went into funding that sort of lifestyle, went into booze or drugs or whatever. Most people saw it as the opportunity that it was, that someone wasn't breathing down their neck, but they could go and get an apartment. They could get their shit sorted out. They had the dignity of a little bit of space to do it. And that is my firm belief that that's what people want. There is always going to be a percentage of people that go, you know what? I'm okay with being destitute. I'm okay with this. It's better than working. And you know what? Fine. It'll be such a small percentage. It's such a tiny fraction of my taxes go towards that. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I want to see other social benefits out of having something like a UBI. Like if someone's an artist and they can produce cultural items for our society, that's a good thing. If a playwright is able to smash out an award-winning play or a movie script while he's on a UBI, that's a good thing. If someone's able to donate their time to a community group or a sports group or something like that, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
These are benefits. There's benefits for our benefits. We have
Chewie,
one of the world's best UBI programs already in place. It's New Zealand Super. Your nan loves it. Incredibly low admin costs for what it is, because it is just a blanket. Everybody fucking gets it.
Just before we move on, I just need to do a quick search. 5 days to get out of amber. I just want to see what's out there at the moment.
I don't recognize that piece of music.
Neither. Welcome back, team. Hope you're enjoying the best of. Reminder, we're back here again live from Monday of next week. Looking forward to getting back to it. Really important heads up about the store at the moment. A couple of things to know. It is open, bhnshop.nz, bhnshop.nz. It is open, but what we're probably going to do is we're probably going to take down perhaps the Chewies, the Nikki No Boats and the BHNs in the lead up to Waitangi Day for a couple of reasons. One is I run the store. I pretty much, either I or one of my family members pretty much packs up everything. We print all the shirts, we fold them, we take them to the post shop, and I'm going away for 2 weeks on honeymoon. So I will be out of here by about the 25th of December. No, January. we're talking about. Now that means I can't really leave the store open for others to monitor because they don't have the access. So what it means is the buffer in particular, I'm thinking that people are going to want for Waitangi Day. And if you do want a buffer, there are limited numbers there. As you can see, the green, is that green? No, that's rust. There are some green 3XLs left, but the rust 3XLs have all gone. There's the rust one there, of course, which I think is my favorite. Although I might make myself a green one. I haven't got one yet. Which means basically kind of after the 25th of January, you may not be able to get buffer gear. And I'm guessing buffer gear for Waitangi Day could be quite important for some people, as about the idea that we're talking about what it is. Same to be said for the hoodies. You can see, look, pinks have all gone. Maroons, I think there might only be one of, and it's in 3XL. There are greens though, or maybe there's only green larges as well. So the numbers are limited, and the store's likely coming down once I go on honeymoon because we won't be able to service the store. So what I'm saying is you need to get in now. You need to get in now and get your gear if you want. The other items are much of the same. Everything's still available as I record this, but at some stage before the 25th, we'll be taking some of these down and putting them back up again once I get back from honeymoon, but that'll be about it. So long-winded, I'm sorry. And it's a terrible way to do a clip that's going to play 4 times this week or 5 times this week because you'll remember it clearly. But bhnshop.nz if you want to get some merch. And even though we're in pre-record mode, I'm still in Dunedin, we're still here, and we will still send out gear. So if you want it, especially the buffer gear for Waitangi Day, then order it today. bhnshop.nz.
You excluded the police association from the first part of consultation on that first little sliver of gun reforms because you said that advice of police was sufficient. But documents obtained by One News this week showed you tried to have those police comments removed from the public record. So given gun laws are absolutely integral to police safety, why should police trust a former gun lobbyist who won't involve the police association and who tried to delete the official advice from police that she didn't like from the public record?
Mm-hmm. One of the great things that I found about being a cabinet minister is learning the processes and how it all works. I presented a paper to cabinet and the police came in with their...
Could you imagine if a Labour MP made some kind of what on the outside appears like, I mean, almost corruption, let's just say it appears like that, and then they came back to the media and they said, oh, you know, I'm a minister, and as a minister I need to learn the system, and as I'm learning the system I found out how to do it. Can you imagine what Luxon and his mates would be saying about that person? What you this is not an on-the-job training kind of thing, mate. This is the highest positions in the land. This is not an on-the-training job. If you are not skilled to be there, if you don't know the system, you should not be there. And so just to let this kind of go and go, oh, you know, she made a mistake and she's learning. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's utterly, utterly ridiculous.
Fulsome advice, and they went against what I said. I asked the question, are they allowed to put that, this is my paper, are they allowed to put that in there? Does it have to be in there? And the response that I got back was, yes, they're allowed to put that in there, Minister, but you can also have your own say. You can talk back to what they say, and I've done that. So it's about learning the process. What I'm really grateful for is that New Zealand Police have actually been really robust in what they feed back to me. There's about 17 different groups and organisations, and New Zealand Police have been able to give me more feedback than all of them put together, and I value that because they represent every single person within the New Zealand Police.
What's wrong with the gun registry?
The firearms registry itself, I'm actually quite keen on, believe it or not. We've had a registry.
Not. I go with not. What about you, Chewie? Believe it or not, I'm going with not.
Yeah, I wonder what little rat hole she's got in this argument.
Yeah, this is a good one. Watch for the shell game.
Against it last year?
Well, I campaigned against a full firearms registry. We've had a registry in place since the 1980s and the 1990s, and I've been a part of that. What I don't agree with is the full registration of firearms, because we've got so many people out there that are concerned about putting their details into a system that they don't trust the security.
So, okay, so you're worried about it becoming a steel to water kind of list or something like that, right?
It can be, yes.
So to be totally clear, though, ACT opposes a firearms registry for all guns, but ACT supports a firearms registry for restricted weapons.
Restricted weapons, pistols, collector items, as we've had over the...
So the kinds of firearms that gangs would be most attractive to, handguns and expensive weapons. So the kind of guns that the gangs would be most attractive to, they support a registry for those, but for everyone, no. So Farmer Bob out in Southland with a shotgun, no. You know, such and such person living in central Wellington who collects handguns, yes. And now she's trying to sell it is because they're scared of it being a steal to order if they go with everyone. This is the beautiful thing that Jack pulls out, Chewie.
So her mentioning pistols, I can tell you for a fact is a bunch of bullshit. To be a pistol owner in New Zealand is some of the most restrictive firearms legislations we've got, and the fact that you have to be a member of a pistol club and your weapon stays there or is handed to the police. You can't just keep it at home. So that's bullshit. But she's missing out the fact that the vast majority of gang firearms offences are like what you mentioned: Farmer Brown's forgotten shotgun cut down, Farmer Brown's old 303, that has been cut down. It's all firearms. And why would you want to complicate something like this? Like
100%. They do get onto that as well. They get onto how gangs get these weapons. We'll keep going. Is that right?
Yep.
Or restricted weapons.
Restricted weapons, pistols, collector items, as we've had over the last 40 years.
Hang on a second. So if you're so concerned about it being a steel to water list, why would you support having a registry for our most dangerous guns?
Because those most dangerous firearms that you talk about actually are under a higher security requirement. And that means...
You mean in houses?
In houses. They actually have a higher security
But the concern is with the registry. Yeah, I understand that. But the concern is with the registry.
Yes.
So you just said that the registry can't be trusted, potentially can't be trusted because of security concerns, but you do support having a registry for our most dangerous guns.
I do support having a registry for our most dangerous firearms. I think that's really important, but I'll take a step back here with you as well.
But
we look at the A category.
But the concern is around the security of a registry. I mean, if
that's one of the concerns, Jack. It's not the only concern.
That's a concern you just identified to me.
But it's one, and I can identify some others.
What are the others?
$350 million has already been spent on firearms control by the Labor government.
How much has been spent on the registry?
Over $200 million has been put aside for spending on the registry.
How much has been spent on the registry
put
so far?
aside.
I'm not aware of how much has been spent, but $208 million has been put aside.
It's public information. So it's cost $10 million to establish the firearms registry, and this is from the.
Sorry, over $350 million has been spent. Jack, $10 million has been spent. Here's the information.
Authority. We estimate it'll cost $8.5 million per annum to continue operating.
And
seems like good value for money, really.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is because it's not going to stop there.
But it's not $200 million.
I don't think it is because it doesn't work with my narrative. I don't think it's good value for money because it doesn't work with what I'm going to do.
Seems like good value for money, really.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is because it's not going to stop there.
But it's not $200 million. Like
it's $350 million has been spent on arms control.
But this is on the registry. This is on the registry. Does that include the gun buyback?
Can I give you some stats?
No. I've just asked you for stats. You've just said that the registry is going to cost $200 million.
You haven't asked me for stats.
It's 10.4 and 8.5
whether or not a registry is going to work in New Zealand. And this is why we're having a review, because yes, you could ask me all these questions, but the point is have a review.
Then I might have to answer them. Come on, Jack, you could ask me all these questions, and then what am I supposed to do? Answer them? I mean, come on.
And this is why we're having a review, because yes, you could ask me all these questions, but the point is have a review. What's happened overseas? Canada said that they were going to spend $2 million. They spent $2 billion before they got rid of it.
But in New Zealand, we've spent $10 million.
When we have a look at the
police, no, because you care about stats. I checked with police. They said it came in under budget and on time, which is about the first time that's ever happened with a public project of this
There's
scale.
more to be done in that space, Jack. It's not over. They have.
This is another thing that they're doing. They're basically saying this is not going to work, so we don't want to do anything. It's like it's if someone says to you that if this is not going to get the absolute best case scenario, this is going to be the gold standard the world has seen, then we should do nothing. This is the other argument that's starting to come out. If you don't get it to absolutely solve every single issue, then you should spend no money on it whatsoever, which is the argument that comes out next, Chewie.
Implemented a system, which is the start of a system. The system is not completed, it's not finished,
but you're
and it's
it
going
already.
To be more than $20 million. Right. Well, we've already got a registry system in place at the moment. We've had 6 breaches of data since 2019. And here's another good fact for you, actually, Jack. In the A category, or the sporting firearms that are now to be registered, police will tell us that 70% of firearms that they find seized are actually A category type firearms, and this is why we need a registry. But they will also say that 65% of the firearms that they find have no serial number on them. Now, if we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars to be spent,
this is so stupid. This is so stupid. But they had a serial number on them, and under a registry, that serial number will be lodged with Farmer Bob. And if they then find that 2 years later that gun's out and about and it's got no serial number on it, at the stage that they want to check in with Farmer Bob with where it had a serial number on it and he doesn't have it anymore, then there's questions to answer. So it's like, what does that matter that it now doesn't have any serial numbers on it? We know that Farmer Bob had it. with a serial number on it, and if he no longer has it, then Farmer Bob's answerable to that if he hasn't declared or reported to the police it's been stolen. So this is actually a complete red herring she's putting out right now.
Fine, have no serial number on them. Now, if we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars to be spent, and it will be coming, it's not finished yet, on the registry, is it going to be,
store buyers, right?
Is it going to be the ambulance at the bottom of the hill?
So you say it's going to cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. The official line is that it's cost us 10.4 and 8.5 a year.
To date.
Hey, kia ora again. Welcome back, whānau. Thanks for watching the best of. Remember, live shows start again Monday the 13th. As another reminder as well, the merch store is currently open. Like I said earlier, we're probably going to have to take the store down after I head off on honeymoon, just because there'll be no one to service it. So get in there now if you want to get your especially your buffer merch before Waitangi Day. That is, of course, bhnshop.nz. But speaking of shop, speaking of merch, speaking of money, huge thanks to all of our patrons. In the last 7 days, a big thanks to George Terry, to Christian, to Rocket Rihari, to Mark White, to Joey Parr, and to Ruth O'Grady. Ruth O'Grady, top of the morning to you, who have all become patrons, and also Rebecca Hawkins. We won't miss you out, Rebecca. Rebecca Hawkins also in the last 7 days. Also a big shout out to Rachel Hannon. Rachel Hannon's been a patron for a wee while, but upped their patronage, changed levels. 2025 is going to be a different year for patrons. We are going to service you guys better. I understand up until this point you've mostly just been wanting to support us with a few bucks here and there, but we are going to be looking at providing more content for patrons alone, because you guys are the guys who keep this thing going day to day. Merch is great, but the patrons are the guys who help us out day to day. Thanks for joining us again tonight. We will see you tomorrow night, unless this plays on Friday. Then you'll see a live show on Monday for another best of for the other ones. And stay safe. We'll see you super soon. Hooroo.
Settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is here.